All right, I'm going to call this meeting of the Sequim City Council to order. If everybody could please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. If the city clerk could please take roll call.
Councillor Downer.
Here.
Councillor Butler.
Here.
Councillor Lowe.
Present.
Deputy Mayor Anderson.
Present.
Mayor Janice.
Present.
Councillor Rudder.
Here.
Councillor Hartman.
Here.
All right. Next up is the approval of the final agenda. I think at this point it will probably be appropriate to make a motion to Becky, no, we're doing.
I move that we suspend council rules and not have public comment today, and only take written comment until we finish working on our policies and our issues with the virtual comments.
Second.
Any council discussion regarding suspending the council rules? Any opposed to the motion? All right, council rules are hereby suspended for general public comment only. This is not for the public comment section. This is only general comments. Yeah, for the public hearing comments. So the public can submit written comments to the clerk to be distributed to council. All right. Is there any other changes to the final agenda for this evening?
Move to approve as presented.
Second.
All right, moved and seconded. Any opposed? All right, seeing none, motion passes. All right, moving on to ceremonial. There are 3 this evening. First one is in regards to Pride Month, and Councillor Lowe is going to read the first one.
Thank you. Whereas the month of June is chosen as Pride Month across the nation in commemoration of the Stonewall protest against the violence and marginalization faced by lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, two-spirit, and intersex persons in June 1969 at Stonewall Inn in New York, and the resulting civil rights movement for LGBTQ2SI+ rights since then. And whereas the President of the United States proclaimed the month of June 2024 as LGBTQSI+ Pride Month, and furthermore stated, I call upon the people of the United States to recognize the achievements of the LGBTQ2SI+ community, to celebrate the great diversity of the American people, and to wave their flags of pride high. And whereas the governor of Washington State proclaimed the month of June 2024 LGBTQ2SI+ Pride Month, and whereas every individual is equal before and under the law and has the right to equal protection and equal benefit of the law without discrimination based on race, national or ethnic origin, color, religion, sex, age, or mental or physical disability. And whereas by showing our support of the LGBTQSI+ community, we are supporting their right to equal protection under the law. And whereas courageous LGBTQSI+ Americans, including Sequim community members, continue to inspire and bring hope to all people seeking a life true to who they are. And whereas LGBTQ2SI+ people also continue to enrich every aspect of American life as educators, entertainers, and entrepreneurs, athletes, actors, artists, scientists, scholars, doctors, veterans, and more. And now, therefore, I, Brandon Janice, Mayor of the City of the Sequim, and on behalf of the City Council, do hereby recognize June 2024 as LGBTQSI plus Pride Month and celebrate the courage and contributions of the LGBTQ2SI community members. We reflect on the progress we have made so far in pursuit of equality, justice, and inclusion. We recommit ourselves to doing more to support the LGBTQ2SI plus rights and invite community members to show their support of our LGBTQ2SI plus community members every day and by participating in Pride events next Saturday, June 29th here in the city of Sequim. Signed on this 24th day of June 2024. And I get the honor of presenting this proclamation to Michael Lowe, my uncle, who brought the first Pride event to Sequim 3 years ago? Two?
Our third year.
This is our third year. So here, thank you.
I want to thank the council. It was kind of hard springing this on you 3 years ago. I did it kind of as a surprise, but it was also in honor of my 75th birthday. I was 22 years old when Stonewall happened, and it chased me back in the closet. Those were fears and things like that. We all suffered from that due to Marcia and a few of the others who gave their lives up to get this started. So that goes back. There's a lot involved in here. But for me, it's about all of us living together peacefully. We're all people, no matter what we do or who we are. But to be able to have the freedom to live as we want to live and live in a town like Sequim, which is one of the prettiest places ever. Both sides of my family are pioneers of this area. I live in the little house in front of the granary in 1947. We had an outhouse that was the end of town. And my grandmother stuck a feather in a basket on either side of me, and I grabbed them both, which in our culture meant that I was contrary. So at some points in my life, I would have a crossroad and have to make a decision as to who I was. On that trip, I wound up with 2 beautiful children, 3 grandchildren, and a great-grandbaby on the way. A wonderful support of family. And I'm finding that support more and more here in Sequim as each year goes by. I've tried not to be overbearing, but I'm involved in your school system. I've done some teaching lessons with 8th and 9th graders, 10th actually. I'm part of the Sequim Grange. I get involved in good governance. I stand on street corners to get you elected. So I'm a part of Sequim. Sequim is my home. This is where all my ancestors are buried and live. And I thank you so much for this. This is a big step.
Stop for a second.
Any comments from council?
I'm honored. I'm grateful that we're taking this step and making this proclamation, first one for the city, if I'm not mistaken, a proclamation of Pride Month.
First one we wrote.
Oh, first one we wrote. Okay, yes, very, very special. Thank you so much. Thank you for reading it. Thank you for being here. This is a special day. Thank you.
Anything else? All right. Moving on to the next one. This will be for recognizing Sarah VanAusdle for years of service and for exceptional leadership. And whereas Sarah VanAusdle has faithfully served the city of Sequim for over 13 years, and whereas her career here began when she was hired as an accounting assistant at the city of Sequim in 2011, she quickly moved to public works management analyst in 2012, was promoted to assistant public works director in 2021, and served as interim public works director until she was convinced to take on the official role of Public Works Director in 2022. And whereas through every role in which she served, Sarah consistently worked to professionalize and advance our city, as such was on the ground floor of implementing the first ever capital improvement program, CIP, in 2013, the first long-range financial plan with the finance department, and the first multi-year fleet replacement program. And whereas driven by our organizational value of stewardship, Sarah made strategic decisions such as initiating our full asset management program, tracking and protecting resources that will last many years into the future. And whereas she assisted and facilitated the development of the wholesale sewer agreements with Carlsberg and Jamestown. And whereas Sequim Public Works is populated by numerous independent-minded cats, and Sarah is a cat herder extraordinaire. And whereas Sarah was a reliable team member who capably supported others and approached every challenge and responsibility with thoughtfulness, care, and humor, and tenacity. And whereas with her humble approach and care for people, Sarah accepted the Public Works Director responsibility at a critical time, and in addition to steadying the ship, she took on the challenge of fixing many thorny historical issues for the betterment of our staff and community. And whereas Sarah will be remembered for her value-based decision-making dedication to the staff, loving of frosting, incredible work ethic, and willingness to figure it out, always moving our city forward. Now, therefore, I, Brandon Janice, Mayor of the City of Sequim in the state of Washington, do hereby proclaim our great appreciation for the contributions of Sarah VanAusdle and her service in a time of need to the City of Sequim and greater North Olympic Peninsula, expressing our deepest appreciations for her dedication and commitment to the citizens and staff, and extend to Sarah and her family our best wishes for many years of happiness in the future. Signed on this 24th day of June, 2024.
Thank you, Council and Mayor. This is much appreciated. And I have to say also, Matt's not here tonight, but Matt and the senior management team, I thank them for their unwavering support during this time. But I also have to shout out the whole Public Works Department as a whole. They are rock stars. They are the unsung heroes that are behind the scenes all the time, making sure that everything is working. No problems. They're out there in the storms, the floods, the fires, everything, and they take great pride in their work. And it's been heartening and humbling to me to watch all of them, administration, engineering, the crews, just pull together and say, we're going to figure this out. We're going to get it done. We're going to be out in front with excellence. And it's been a real honor to be part of that team, and I have enjoyed it immensely. So thank you.
Anything from council?
Oh, absolutely. At the risk of bawling my eyes out. Oh God, I can't even look at her. There's only one Sarah VanAusdle in the whole world. And I am so grateful that I was able to work with you and watch you lead. And you have always just been such an inspiration. And no matter what, you always had so much patience and so much grace. And I will never forget you. So thank you so much.
Anything else from council?
Sarah, I really do appreciate your calmness in all situations and your professionalism. You set a good example. Thank you.
Ditto. You're amazing. Thank you, Sarah, for your service.
All right, move on to the third one. All right, Pete, I hope I'm saying your last name right. Tjemsland, right? Tjemsland? 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 Okay. CHM. I'm saying a whole lot, so.
Yeah.
Chem. You want to say it? You want to read it? I'll let you read it. Yeah. If you want to read it, so I hope I don't butcher it. You want to read it? Pass it down.
City of Sequim proclamation recognizing Pete Tjemsland for 35 years of dedicated service. Whereas Pete Tjemsland has faithfully served the City of Sequim water and wastewater system for 35 years, and whereas his career began at the City of Sequim when he was hired in the Utilities Department in 1989 as a laborer, then moved to maintenance worker, served as equipment operator, garbage truck operator, mechanic, biosolids truck operator, treatment plant operator, and finally was promoted and ultimately has served our city as the utilities manager since 2008. And whereas throughout his service to our community, he has also served our country as chief equipment operator with the United States Navy Seabees from 1982 to 2003, with 5 deployments, including Beirut and Lebanon in 1984 and Desert Storm in 1990 and 91. And whereas Pete served as construction manager in 2008 for the $10 million water reclamation facility upgrade project. And whereas Pete shepherded ongoing advanced treatment, components for Sequim's reclaimed water system, reduced environmental impact, and improving water quality in Sequim Bay, allowing for the reopening of commercial, recreational, and tribal shellfish beds. And whereas Pete worked diligently at the local and state level to ensure the city will have into the future reliable resources of clean drinking water. And whereas Pete has consistently exhibited a deep and unwavering commitment to the City of Sequim and his residents, and whereas Pete will be remembered for his immense knowledge of our water and wastewater system, his minion collection, and his pride in and appreciation for his family. Now, therefore, I, Brandon Janice, Mayor of the City of Sequim in the state of Washington, do hereby proclaim our appreciation of the 35 years of dedication service by Pete Tjemsland to the City of Sequim and Greater North Olympic Peninsula, expressing our deepest appreciation for his dedication and commitment to our utility system, bettering the health and safety of the community, and extending to Pete and his family our best wishes for many years of happiness into the future. Signed on this day, 24th day of June, 2024.
There you go.
I'm getting old. Thank you. There was one correction though I noticed. We do not influence Sequim Bay. It's just rates of Wanda Fuca. Just remember that. So, but thank you. I don't know what to say after 35 years. I could probably spend all day up here like everybody knows I do. So, but thank you.
Anything from council?
Yes, just super quick. Pete's worked for the city longer than I've been alive, and I feel like that is just really cool to say. So I think Pete, through thick and I can't even imagine what's happened at the city in 35 years. So through thick and thin, Pete has stuck out all of it. Thank you for your service.
Thank you.
I know I got to read that, but I've known Pete so long, I don't remember when I met him. And that's, typical to being a lifelong Squamite. Also, I got the pleasure of living next door to him and Ann and raising our daughters by each other. So I really appreciate just how much he put into his work here and how much he puts into his community. He was a great neighbor, kind of keeping my husband under wraps sometimes. Sometimes Jim was keeping you under wraps. But just his knowledge, that institutional knowledge, it's sad to see it go. I know you need to retire, you got grandkids and all that, and I hope you really enjoy that. But we just really appreciate all of the institutional memory that you kept here in Squim and helped other people learn about. So thank you.
I'd like to just add that I'm new here, but I got the pleasure of having the Public Works tour last Friday. And not only did I learn a whole lot, but through the presentation, it was very clear from both Sarah and Pete how much they value their team, how happy their team is. There was joking in the van as they took me around to the different sites, and they just have immense pride, and it really showed. So congratulations on your retirement, both of you.
All right. Nothing else, we'll move on. All right, item 6 is that will be suspended, yep. So moving on to item 7. That'll be first of our public hearings, mid-year 2024 budget amendment and ordinance public hearing. Subject of this public hearing, again, is the mid-year 2024 budget amendment and ordinance authorizing unforeseen expenditures for 2024. Go ahead and open the public hearing. And the staff have testimony to present.
Good evening, Mayor and Deputy and Council members. Sue Hagener, Administrative Services Director for the record. And tonight is the second formal touch and the public hearing on our second amendment to the 2024 budget for the year. The purpose of this budget amendment is twofold. Number one, it is to accommodate adding a 1 full-time equivalent or FTE to our employee count for a new Parks and Programming Assistant Manager. As you're well aware, our citizen survey revealed that parks are a very, very high priority for our citizenry. And right now, we simply don't have the staff to kind of keep up with all of the demands. One of the things that this position will do will alleviate pressure on the Parks and Events Manager, Miss Merrill, to be able to go ahead and pursue additional grants, which are very burdensome to apply for. And really, the future programming of many of our parks, including new playground equipment, is totally dependent on being able to pursue those opportunities for grants and loans. Again, this position is going to relieve demand. There are tons of requests for services. We've got volunteer groups all over the place doing wonderful work, but they need to be managed. They will assist with this position, will assist with event planning, volunteer program development, collaborating with our partners. And man, we have a lot of them, sponsors, vendors, and other outside agencies. So that's really the purpose of this assistant manager position, is to just really lend more boots on the ground to this team. So we've added salary and benefits for this person as well to the money side of the equation for about half a year. And again, we're asking that council support this new position due to the importance of parks to our community. And finally, I'd just like to remind council that in order for this ordinance to be adopted, we need 5 votes. So a majority of council plus 1. And I'm happy to take any questions. And yank Hannah up here if I need to. Any questions, anybody? Thank you for your time.
Well, I do have a few. So explain to me why now? Why was it never a priority in the past that this position was never needed?
I will say that parks has always been a priority. It's just that we're seeing more and more events pop up. So for example, a few years ago, we never had a 4th of July event in the park. That is something now that the city sponsors and that our parks and events staff have to respond to. And I was having a conversation with Hannah prior to this meeting. I think if you just explain what's happening this week, that might lend a little color to why we're asking for this position at this time.
I still think the other issue is the fact that, like I said, I don't have no issue with the position, but I still don't buy into why it's being funded to pursue grants. I think that's the wrong reasoning for the position.
And that's relieving pressure on the parks and events manager is just part of the equation. The real point of the position is to lend more boots on the ground to address events that we've never sponsored before and park activities.
But if you're also using it to go after grants.
We're using it to free up the time of the manager from running around to pickleball courts to different
But going back to grants, so I want to go back to grants.
Okay.
So if you're going after grants that are competitive, that are on every 2-year grant cycles that we're not guaranteed to get, I think is the wrong approach. Absolutely wrong approach. That's why I'm more concerned about going after something that has a more guaranteed funding source. That's why I'm waiting to see something like the Parks District to see if it's something that you can bond against. So once we get information on that, and if that's something that goes before the voters and is approved, then we can talk more help. But until something like that is looked at, I'm not buying into that. And I think solely bonding the position.
I'd like to make some clarifications here that this position is not grant funded.
No, I'm not saying the position is grant funded, but wasting, FTEs to go after grants. I'll fund a grant, a position to go after grants for the organization as a whole, but not just for parks.
I just want to add that, so we have to do, to your point, Mayor Janice, there are requirements to get grants, which are conducting master plans. And I know that's something that makes you cringe also. However, a master plan is also a way to get the community involved in what's happening in our parks. So we get community feedback. And even if it's a phase thing where we have the funding and we can develop our parks with existing funding, we still need those master plans. It also does allow us to go for grants so that we can get additional funding. And you're right, sometimes we get them and we're successful and sometimes we don't, but it allows us to have community input so that we are serving the community in a way that they have some say in. So we want to do that for the parts that don't have those. And also we have a lot more programming, a lot more events happening. So for example, this week there is the music in the park. There's a pickleball tournament. There's a softball tournament. There are people using Guy Cole. And all of those things require my staff and everybody to respond to. It requires me coordinating with those groups to make sure they're getting the parking they need, that they have the permits that they need, that they've done their special event insurance and all those sorts of things. So those things are increasing. We've had more special event permits this year than ever before. And we have more and more activities happening at our courts and facilities and at our parks. And so we're just needing to have that lift to support that administratively so that we can get additional funding and get that support to our staff.
I wanted to just chime in here. At my day job, there is someone on our staff who spends probably 70% of their time working on grants, the writing of them. Then once they're here, then there's a lot of reporting and a lot of deliverables to those. And that is, having seen it firsthand, what that person works through, it's a lot. So I can appreciate that workload. I think that this is a very, as a new counselor, and I want to just make sure that I'm going to keep thinking about this while others are speaking. But I just wanted to make sure that I spoke to that I've seen firsthand, that working for getting the grants and then working to support the grants and keep those moving forward is quite a bit. So if that, and I thought of another thing too, is that we have a lot of parks in our city. And I think that we need to be supporting their development with new equipment and all the things, and that just takes money. And I'm wondering if it's a both potentially. I mean, if we do a full FTE for a manager and a park district, that maybe that, I don't know. Like, I don't know if it's an either or, but I think it could be a both.
See, to me,
thank you for hearing me out.
See, I agree, but this position to me isn't a director level position. If they want an administrative position to handle, that's fine, something lower on the totem pole. But to me, you can't. That's why we're sitting around twiddling our thumbs on parks, is because we're waiting on every 2-year grant cycles. That's why we're doing this every 2 years, and that's why we're not having movement. And that's what makes me upset, because we're waiting around forever, because we're so heavily dependent on grants. If we want to fund a grant writer, a second one, I'm all for that for citywide. But that's the problem, is that we're so heavily dependent on grants. But if we want somebody lower on a totem pole to administer, more volunteer help, that's on a director level position, we'll talk about that one as well.
I wanted to provide a little bit of clarity. The assistance with the grant writing is just part of what this person would do. It's a pretty heavy lift to apply for an RCO grant, and it takes a significant amount of Hannah's time. So this would just be part of what this person would do. One of the real stories, like has already been noted, is the increased amount of events that are taking place, the increased amount of events that the city is actually sponsoring. So that's administrative lift on our part. And the part that hasn't been said is Hannah works crazy hours. She's in here 6 a.m. A lot of times she's not out of here until 8 o'clock at night. I know she's in here on the weekends. She took on a significant load from Barb Hannah when she took on the events and the Arts Commission. It was overloading for Barb. It's simply a need for more staff. And it's not a director level position. It's a lower manager than what Hannah is. But we need that manager position, not a union position, because this person needs to relieve the duties that Hannah is doing, not administrative permit processing, that type of thing. She needs relief for some of what she is doing right now. I don't know if that helps clarify what this position is for, but that's also why it's an immediate need.
I have some comments. One, just a side note that it's very silly to me that we are having to approve FTEs. Like, that should be an administrative side of things, but here we are. 2, we have so much going on in parks. This is from a business perspective of taking care of our staff. When there is so much going on, there is only so many hours in a day. And if you have one person, typically a supervisor,
spending an extreme amount of hours trying to take care of their department that can lead to burnout and low morale across the entire department. And I'm really, how do I word it? I'm very supportive of staff being able to do their jobs and do them well. And if they are working too many hours, if they're spread too thin, they're not able to do their job well. This FTE, in my opinion, is absolutely necessary to take the workload off of not only Hannah, but the entire department so that they can work on other priorities. And we do have a lot of parks, but we also have a lot of events that the Parks and Events Department is constantly working on. And it's summer. So we have more events going on, and waiting to hear about a parks district. I'm not sure how long that would take, but Parks and Events needs another FTE now, preferably, so that they can work on things throughout the summer. It's not a wait 6 months and get an FTE. It's do it now, get an FTE, so that we can take the workload off of everybody in the department. So that all being said, I'm very supportive of approving an FTE for the Parks and Events Department.
Well, even if we approved it, they're not going to hire somebody to start tomorrow. The problem is we're dealing with poor funding sources from every direction.
I have different concerns. First of all, I want to say that at part of our job when we're elected is to be good stewards of the city's money. That being said, I did not hear anything that we needed another employee in this department until 2 weeks ago, the very first time it was brought to council. I didn't hear anything from HR. I didn't hear anything from Hannah. I didn't hear anything from our city manager. And like I said 2 weeks ago, I would absolutely vote for this if it started in January. But when we pass a budget for this year, I think we should try to stick to it. And I'm not sure why Hannah, I didn't know that she had to write the grants or help write them when the city has a grant writer. Does the city grant writer only write for streets proposals and not other departments?
My understanding is that it's a very collaborative effort between Hannah Merrill and Megan, our resource analyst. Yeah.
And
it takes a village.
And the planning part, I thought that we pay somebody a large amount of money to come up with the plans. And I know that those plans are needed because they go along with the grant application.
We have a City of Sequim Parks and Open Space plan. Individual parks also require, it allows community input to have master plans. So that's what I would like to do. And I feel like I could do that in-house rather than going to a consultant. I could do a master plan for the smaller parks that are coming online, Gearhart, Keeler, and then we have a big parcel we've just recently purchased, and that one we would probably go out to have a consultant do a master plan for that park.
Okay. Well, that being said, I don't know that, I think that this is just going to have to pass without my vote. Thank you.
And I just wanted to remind council that I think it was last year, maybe it was 2022. I can't remember, Mr. Chief of Police, but the police department was hitting basically a crisis patch of staffing due to injuries, due to retirements, and because it takes so long to get an officer up to patrolling, we requested 2 new FTEs in the middle of the year so we could start doing some better succession planning. So this budget amendment requesting a new FTE in the middle of the year is not unusual because we want to respond to the needs of the departments. And since we're designing budgets, a budget that exists today, we designed last year, right about this time. Things change, and we just like to be responsive and nimble, and move when we need to move and pivot when we need to pivot. And that's why we're requesting this position tonight. Any other comments from council? And I appreciate everybody's support on this. Thank you, Sarah and Hannah.
I have a question. So does the city hire seasonal staff during the summer months to help support when we know we have more activities normally? I mean, is that part of the regular budgeting process?
Yes, but I don't believe that are there seasonals budgeted this year for parks? I don't believe there are. Not this year. Next year, we're going to plug those into the budget. But you know, it's kind of interesting. Seasonals are an interesting topic. Sometimes our public works managers love them. Hey, let's stock up the staff during the heavy times of the year, and then other managers say, well, gosh, you know, it takes 2 months to train them up, and then they're gone in the next 4 months, and then we got to train new seasonals all over again. So there's differing philosophies. Do you want to hire a full-time staff that's going to be there, that's going to learn the job that you're not going to have to replace in another 6 months, or not? But yes, so the practice of hiring seasonals has kind of been up and down over the years. It kind of really just depends on the needs of the department manager. Does that make sense, Vicki?
I mean, what you're saying makes sense, but the practice doesn't make sense to me. I mean, we live in a seasonal community, right? With tourism, I used to write the schedule at Safeway, so yeah, I know how it works to staff up and staff down.
Yeah.
So I'm just surprised that, I mean, there's students who could work during the summers, you know, I think that's a better use of the funds, and I'm concerned about the idea of not wanting to hire union members and to have more management staff. That statement concerns me.
I think it was a year, maybe 2 years ago, we had like 1.5 parks maintenance, and we did bump up to 2 full-time parks maintenance, which is what we have now. And if I recall right, the reason we didn't put a seasonal in the budget for this year is we wanted to see how those 2 full-time would be able to keep up with the workload. But that is maintenance activities. That's not the type of management activities that we're looking for right now. Like I said, we are requesting a seasonal for next year.
Yeah, thank you. I just briefly want to be on the record that I have heard a compelling argument for our city parks management staff being under-resourced. So I'm grateful for this proposal. And to your point, Vicki, I think adding more seasonal adds more management load. So it's not an either or. If we need more seasonal, that's great, but that's just going to increase the load on the full-time management. So
that's a great point. Yes.
Again, going back to my experience working at Safeway, I disagree, but I understand what you're saying.
Well, and for clarification too, the seasonal would be doing a totally different job than the FTE we're talking about right now.
Yeah. Don't get me wrong. We're all working directors. We are all working managers. We are boots on the ground when there needs to be, which I think is one of the problems with Hannah's just total and utter commitment to running a great department and great parks and great events. So
I resonate with this because you have visions for goals that you have for your department, and when you're constantly putting out fires, you can't get the time to carve out to help move forward.
Yeah.
But maybe when we enter into the next budget process, there can be a conversation about how to put everybody's minds at a little bit more ease for mitigating mid-year budget changes, but
Yeah.
otherwise I support this.
And thank you. Thank you. I will say it has been kind of a wild year. Lots of change and lots of pivoting by our departments and by our budget.
Anything else from council?
For the purposes of the record, this is Georgia Bullard, Youth Liaison. I just want to say from what I've heard and read about this, I really do support it. I use parks a lot, and I just think it's a great thing to have more management support in these positions.
Anything else from council? Okay, we will now move on to public comment.
This is a public comment portion for the public hearing item as noted. Soon the mayor will ask for public comments. We are taking those from those attending in person. There is a specific public comment sign-in sheet. And if anyone is online wishing to provide public comment for the virtual public hearing, please press the raise your hand icon, or if you're on the phone, press *9. Comments are limited to 3 minutes, and there will be a timer visible on the screen. Please avoid comments not related to the subject of the hearing.
Okay, just as a little disclaimer here, the city of Sequim does support the public's First Amendment right to free speech, but it does not support the use of hate speech or offensive language. Any offensive words or conduct shared by the public does not reflect the city's values. Do we have any members of the public who wish to speak?
No one has signed up in person, and I do not see anyone has raised their hand. Oh, do we have an in-person public comment? Okay.
I certainly am concerned. Yeah, in 2007, in the old city hall, I was there the night that Mr. and Mrs. Gerhardt gave us their 7-acre park on South 3rd. And nothing's been done that I can see in 17 years to make that park available to everybody. It's a wonderful, beautiful place that everybody could enjoy. You can even walk down to the Bill Creek, and I would like to see something done to follow up on this budget amendment, and I certainly support it so we can get some use out of the parks for the people that are here.
Thank you. All right, I'm looking to see if anyone online is wishing to speak. And at this time, I do not see anyone, and I just got confirmation there was no one online wishing to speak. So that would conclude the public comment portion.
Okay, we'll now close the public comment portion of the hearing. Thank you to everyone who provided public comment. All right, again, I will ask if there is any further council discussion on this item. All right, seeing none, I will now close the public hearing, and we will now move on to council action. And if we are ready for a motion.
Move to adopt the ordinance amending the 2024 budget.
I second that.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Will City Clerk please take a roll call vote?
Counselor Downer.
No.
Counselor Butler.
Yes.
Counselor Lowe.
No.
Deputy Mayor Anderson.
Yes.
Mayor Janice. Counselor Rutter.
Yes.
Counselor Hartman.
Yes.
The vote is 4 yeses and 3 noes, and since it needed 5 to pass, the motion has failed.
All right, moving on to 7B, Transportation Improvement Plan Public Hearing.
Good evening, Council. For the record, Nick Dostey, City Engineer. For the Transportation Improvement Program tonight, for the benefit of the public, and just as a brief review, this TIP is structured and taken from the CIP. And so I'd like to take this opportunity just to highlight a few specific transportation-based projects and changes we've made compared to the presentation last year. First off, the first two projects you'll see there are both pavement preservation projects. Previously, the city had one pavement preservation category, and that was for all streets in the city. After talking with my engineers and with Sarah, it made sense to split into two categories, our local streets and our collectors and arterials. The idea being that the collectors and arterials would be grant-based funding or third-party funding applications, which we have gotten consistently over the years from both the state and local agencies. So the ability to maintain with those larger amounts of monies, Washington Street, Squim Ave, things like that. Splitting out and what would be city funded, the local streets, which tend not to fare as well in those grant applications. So the idea is that, yes, we can continue the consistent program we have and track our construction on those collectors and arterials through that project code. But now we have the smaller portion, which is at this point and moving forward will be city funded and will be consistent throughout the year. So we can start addressing those deteriorated streets outside of our main corridors. And that not only came from a maintenance perspective, because the maintenance crews have made comments that we pay so much attention to Washington and Squim Ave, but our neighborhoods are deteriorating. But that also that charge was led through the adoption of our ADA transition plan, right? Why would we have potentially new sidewalks where we have poor streets? And also input from the public as well. I've received several comments, basically saying the same thing that the maintenance crew brought up. We see all this money going to Squim Ave and Washington. 7th, the most recent one that wasn't a transportation project, but there was a new stretch of asphalt laid down. What about our neighborhood? So this is a response to those comments. Projects 4, 5, 23, and 45, which we briefly talked about in the CIP, and I would just like to reiterate, those are fully funded projects on the transportation side through the RAISE grant. And so that is a coalition or a composite of local jurisdictions, both city and county, related to the ODT. And so we have East Fur there, again, the Keeler Road shared use path, which to follow up Councilor Downer, that is the public right of way. I asked and both our GIS technician and the project engineer just to confirm, just so there wasn't any confusion. So while it is public, it is small. So we'll probably need to pursue some purchases, but it is public from West Squim Bay all the way to the cul-de-sac there. And then again, project 45, Johnson Creek Crossing repair is how it's identified, but that is that trestle bridge. So we are looking to rehabilitate and update and upgrade both the structure, substructure, and superstructure of the bridge for safety purposes. And then the last thing I would like to highlight is Project 15 and Project 32. So Project 15 is actually a project we have applied for just recently from the local road safety plan, Safe Routes to Schools, which will be pedestrian sidewalks and bike lanes on North Squim Ave from Washington north to Fur, understanding that that is a major corridor for both pedestrians and the school buses. So we're hoping to get that fully funded for that improvement. And once that is complete, moving on to Project 32. which is Washington South to Pine, with the same improvements. And we're hoping to use the same funding source to basically show them, hey, this is what was before. This is what you've funded. Look at the improvements that we've made. Now we're looking to continue that success south of Washington Street. So just wanted to highlight those very quickly before any questions you may have. Thank you.
Go ahead, Dan.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate the way you lay this out. Looking at 31 West Squim Road shared use path, it feels like that has bounced back and forth between sometime in the next year or two, and now in this it's pushed out to 29. Is that in that same category? We're looking for funding, and if we get it, we'll move it, or what's the context for that? What looks like it moved?
Yes, it did get bumped out. The main reason for that is the completion of our current West Squim corridor project, the lift station. So we wanted to complete that project from start to end, get the lift station up and running, get those improvements to West Squim in line where they need to be. And then from there, that's where we would kind of step those projects in, Keeler and then the West Squim path that you're mentioning. The biggest problem with that project specifically is we're talking about 2 3/4 miles of a shared use path, which is a 10-foot wide, typically, ADA compliant shared use path that we, in our current existing corridor, don't have room for. So the first step in that project is not only to delineate an alignment, but to see what that negotiated right-of-way acquisition is going to be. And there's dozens of property owners, both small and large, in that whole corridor from Washington to Whitefeather. So that's a pretty significant lift that we will be using a right-of-way agent for. But the main driver for where that was placed was completion of the current project we have now for West Squim lift station and utility improvements.
So thank you. To clarify then, this 2029 is when you actually start grading and paving. All that right-of-way consultant and so on could be happening sooner? Is that, or do we didn't start the right-of-way work until 29?
It could start sooner if we identify funding sources available. But 2029 is when the process would start for right-of-way acquisition. And, typically given the size of the project, I would anticipate at least a year for that. But the planning starts earlier in the 27, 28, and then the spending of money, which again, the first step is right-of-way acquisition, would hopefully be that year.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. I know you're aware, but just again, for the sake of commenting, 5 years from now, there'll be twice as many homes, which is 4 times as many cars on West Squim in that corridor as there are now. So we'll be that much further behind, in that process. And that's an ongoing concern, of course.
Totally understand. And that's why it was bumped. Because it is on the horizon. We do realize it, again, if we're talking about public comments, I receive phone calls, voicemails, concerns about public safety in that area. So it's not being ignored. Please trust me on that. It's just the chess pieces take a little time and the planning take a little time. And again, one of the priorities when the CIP was put together was really built around completing both the Deep Well project and the West Squim corridor project, which are 2 fully funded projects that we are both related to growth that we want to see complete in a short amount of time as possible. Yeah, thank you.
I just wanted to chime in. I wanted to give a shout out to Amy Doherty. She was very, very helpful in discussing this with me last week. I had some similar questions about that exact project that you guys were just talking about. And the way I see it, we can't do anything above ground until we plan for the future below ground first. So thank you. I really appreciated Amy's explanation and also your presentation tonight. Thanks, Nick.
And just a little perspective from, that development is fairly new. I've lived in downtown Sequim my entire life and have been waiting for sidewalks. It's dangerous for me to walk from my house on Prairie Street to the post office. I'd like to walk more because it's healthier and it's good for the environment, but it's also dangerous. So there's, other places that we need to make sure that we're protecting citizens too. I live a block from the the Mountain View Apartments. There are quite a few disabled people that live there. I see them riding their wheelchairs down the middle of the road because there's no sidewalk for them to go on. So we need to make sure we're keeping a balance of where we're putting our resources too.
I hear you. Thank you.
And thank you, Vicky, for making that comment. It slipped my mind. In the order of operations, when we're looking at the projects and the placement of that West Sequim Bay shared use path, it does follow the Complete Streets project that we are looking for funding for now, actually. So that is another factor. It's not as large of a factor because it is currently unfunded and unsecured, but that ball is rolling now to reignite that project, the Complete Streets project. Mainly because I shouldn't say mainly, but the ignition for that was the Safe Routes to Schools on 3rd. And then once we get that project underway, then we can pursue Complete Streets and so on and so forth through that same kind of funding pool.
I know it seems like it's going to take a long time, but I do appreciate the city's commitment to pedestrian and bicycle safety, because not everybody wants to walk just downtown. You want to walk in your neighborhood. And I have seen in Vicky's neighborhood people that walk out in the middle of the street for the same reason. And as you know, West Sequim Bay Road doesn't even have any sidewalks. They have ditches. So that's also bad. But I appreciate the city making the commitment to do something about it. Thank you.
And I think it begs the question about 7th Avenue and the new development out there. I know it might be off topic. Rachel, call me out if you want to, because I know you will. But is there some planning going on there so we're not in the same place a few years down the road once we start getting a bunch of people moving in there, that we're trying to figure out how we're going to make it safe for people who want to walk?
So if I'm understanding the question correctly, since the east side of South 7th will be improved because of the Rolling Hills development, is there currently a plan for the city to, quote unquote, complete that work in the future?
Or are we expecting the developer to, because isn't the developer helping to pay for the trail on West Sequim Bay Road?
No, they should. Well, and to be clear, Vicki, I'm referring to 2 years ago, the city approved an 84 house project that has nothing to do with what's currently being discussed at John Wayne. It's yet to break ground.
Well, I'm just
like
wondering
Rolling
if we learned our lesson about developments and making sure that there's safe paths for people. If we're going to put people together in these developments, are we thinking about the safe paths too while it's being developed? And maybe that's a question for somebody else.
Sounds like Nick is scrambling to do that for us, catching up.
So, I'm sorry, Council, if I may. Purposes of the record, Christina Nelson, Gross City Attorney. Yes, those types of things are looked at as part of the development process, but Washington State and United States case law is quite clear on what we can mandate the developer to provide. And so the development infrastructure that we mandate the developer to make has to be directly connected to the impacts associated with that development. So it makes it incredibly difficult for jurisdictions to attach the impact of a development on West Squim Bay, for example, and how that increased traffic affects Prairie Street, for example, if that makes sense, right? It usually your infrastructure is limited to that area in which the development exists. So
I don't think you understand my question.
okay. And I apologize for that. I just heard parts of it. But, the other thing that I wanted to say is that the city has made a long-term policy decision on growth, paying for growth, and for areas in your neighborhood that was not a priority. And what I'm understanding from Nick and Public Works, that priority is changing. So I'm sorry if I didn't understand your question.
My question was just, when we're building these new developments, are we considering the paths that people are going to walk when they leave the development, because there's going to be more cars on the road? I'm just asking, are we putting a sidewalk that'll connect to where the overpass is there?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
If we can get down to project specifics, then, there are frontage improvements both on McCurdy and on South 7th, specifically on the east side of South 7th, adjacent to the Rolling Hills development. So that is currently underway, as well as installation of a new 12-inch water main.
Thank you. Because right now we're like fixing stuff that happened before. And so we also need to think about the future so we don't keep putting the city in this position. So thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions? All right, go ahead and move on to public comment.
Just one last comment. There was a request to align the CIP and the TIP with council goals. And so after reviewing the TIP with with my team, council goals 1 and eventually 3 seem to be most aligned with the TIP. The first council goal being infrastructure, and the third one being the comp plan. So this TIP will more than likely look very different once the new master plan is done and the new comp plan is done. So I would expect to see some changes in both the list of projects and format, especially with Paul coming in and his experience and guidance on how to better detail the plan and the cost for those projects. So more to come. Thank you.
All right. Public comment.
Again, this is the public comment portion of this specific public hearing. Thank you. The comment sheet for in-person public comment has been collected. If you wish to speak to this public hearing item and you are virtual, please at this time raise your hand on Zoom, or if you're on the phone, press *9 when asked for public comment. At this time, one last call for in-person public comments. Okay. Great. And the mayor said he'll be right back. So to recap, there are no in-person public comments. And at this time, I see, I have confirmation that nobody has requested to speak virtually on this topic. So that would conclude public comment.
All right. Is there any further council discussion? All right. Go ahead and close the public hearing. Move the council action. Are we ready for a motion?
I'm ready to make a motion. I move to waive the third touch and approve the recommendation from the Planning Commission to adopt the proposed 2025 to 2030 TIP and resolution that is yet to be numbered.
I second that.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Any opposed? All right, seeing none, motion passes. All right, and before we move to the consent agenda, I just want to take a 10-minute recess. Okay, I'm going to call us back to order. And we're moving on to item 8, the consent agenda. City Clerk, to please read the consent agenda.
On tonight's consent agenda, we have item 8A, claim vouchers totaling $3,457,032.31. Item 8B, the City Council meeting minutes from June 10th, 2024. Item 8C, the Doe Run Lift Station Contract Award. Item 8D, the Sequim Municipal Code, Chapter 2.48, Council Compensation Amendment, that's an ordinance. Item 8E, the Park, Arbor, and Recreation Board appointments, that's a resolution. And item 8F, the Planning Commission reappointment, that's a resolution.
Is there a motion to approve?
Move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I second that.
Any discussion? Any opposed? I see none, motion passes. All right. Moving on to item 9A, the 2025 to 2030 Capital Improvement Plan Program, second touch.
Good evening again. So per request, as I mentioned in the TIP, engineering team sat down, reviewed the council's 8 goals and aligned those with our capital improvement program. While the one that stood out was the first goal, infrastructure for growth, which in the provided PDF is a common theme throughout the projects. I just wanted to highlight a couple that extended beyond that first goal. In our capital facilities, we have our Guy Cole ECC generator. Since Guy Cole is or will be utilized as an emergency center, and those emergencies typically are spooled up during poor weather, we figured that aligned with the climate change goal that City Council lined out as far as resiliency goes. I would also like to highlight the Silverhorn Deep Well project, multifaceted. Yes, it's for growth, but also addressing concerns about climate change and resiliency, and also as detailed in both my presentation to the Planning Commission and to you as well, opening up that southwest portion of the city limits. So once the well goes in, and then that's tied to the booster station, which is again, the potential for development, those 2 projects potentially open up 3,300 ERUs for development. So just wanted to highlight those specific projects, but as you can see, there's multiple throughout the CIP. So if you have any questions, more than happy to address those. Thank you.
Thank you, Nick. What's an ERU again?
ERU is an equivalent residential unit. So typically 1 ERU is 1 single family residence.
Any other questions?
Thank you for tying to goals, priorities. That's helpful, and I think it's a good exercise for all of us to keep in mind, for us to keep in mind as we're making comments, as well as for you all as you make presentations. So thank you.
And we will make sure to have that as a discussion point with the coming presentations for the coming CIPs and TIPs as well. So thank you for the reminder.
If there's none, there is a motion in the packet.
I'm ready to make motion. I move to direct staff to schedule a public hearing for the next available meeting and draft a proposed ordinance adopting the 2025 to 2030 CIP.
I second that.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All right, seeing that, motion passes.
Thank you very much.
All right. Moving on to 9B, Squim Municipal Code, Chapter 2.04, City Council Code Amendment.
Hello, Council. This evening, I've brought back this item for discussion as requested. So during the May 28th and June 10th council sessions, you have reviewed proposed updates to this Squim Municipal Code Chapter City Council, which we are proposing to actually rename to City Council meetings because that's what the topic is about. So per some council direction, staff had originally proposed changes, hoping just to clarify things, do our code scrub updates, nothing major. It was then noted that there was a little bit of a change that could change how council has operated in the past, specifically related to work sessions or study sessions. So attachment 3 is provided to you tonight. On page 2 of that attachment, you'll see some blue changes to that, kind of clarifying further per council's direction. So this new proposed edit, if you wish to go with it, just has further clarifications on study sessions and work sessions, noting that generally study sessions are non-action discussions, but still reserving the right that council could still take action on items specifically listed on the agenda. So for example, if you had a work session about housing, as you have in the past, you could make motions on housing. You would not be permitted to make motions on, say, food carts or something. So that's standard in other places as well. But the original proposal was because a lot of places never take action in study sessions. So this new change would still preserve that right for you. If you wish to go that route, I've also presented the original option that kind of changed that practice. So this is for your council discussion tonight. And if you wish to provide further direction or adopt, it's in your hands.
I'm prepared to make a motion, but also wanted to comment and say thanks for all your work on this, Amy.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you for listening to the committee.
All right, if there's no other questions or comments, I move to direct staff to present an ordinance on the consent agenda for the next available meeting that amends SMC Chapter 2.04 and attaches the following code language exhibit, the revised proposed amendments.
I second that.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Any opposed? All right, seeing none, motion passes. All right, item 9C, 2025 budget calendar and policy review.
Good evening again, Council. Sue Hagener, Administrative Services Director for the record. Well, even though budget is a year time activity for those of us in finance, thought that we were really kind of getting into the heat of our budget season right now. So I've provided you with a calendar of our budgeted activities, which really kind of start all the way, well, like I said, it's year round. And I also provided you a copy of our budget development policy in case you were not familiar with it. In the cover sheet, I've also provided essentially the key budget concepts that guide the budgeting process. Like, for example, ongoing expenses are balanced against ongoing revenues, meaning we don't rely on one-time revenues for ongoing expenses. Those types of concepts are what we use and apply every day in our budgeting activities. The next time, or the first time you're going to see the 2025 budget, we estimate is going to be in early September. And when we're going to issue our digital budget book to you, you're going to have approximately 2 months to study that, to talk to each other about it, to ask us questions, staff questions about it. And the big finale always concludes in November with our public hearings on the 2025 budget, rates and fees, which also support our activities, as well as the property tax levy public hearing. So November is when the real action occurs. So any questions on anything I provided you or on the timing of things that you can expect to see? Thanks.
All right, item 8D, West Quimby Road and North Rutherford Road update.
Good evening, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, Mayor and City Council. For the record, Paul Busich, Public Works Director. Tonight, I'm going to give you an update on what we have been doing on the situation out there at West Quimby Road and North Rutherford Road. Forgive me if I mispronounce that at least once. It's a new road for me to get used to. In previous communications with the council, I gave you a list of things that we were going to undertake in order to look at the situation out there. And tonight I'm going to brief you on some of those that we have completed. As I do want to be really clear on this, this is an interim report to you. It's not the final report because we have additional work we're still completing. So there will be another report out to you with the final findings and recommendations on actions that we're going to undertake at that time. So to date, we have conducted a number of site visits to physically watch the traffic and observe how things are going on out there. We've also met with one of the co-owners out there at the facility, had a chance to sit down with her and the city manager, and we talked about what they see out there because they're the ones living the situation, not us. Also had a great opportunity to talk to a nice young lady who answered the phone when I first called, and the owners were not available to get a second opinion on what they see out there. The good news is they both confirmed the same thing independently of each other. So their number one issue is the fact that people are not obeying the 20-mile-an-hour speed limit. They're going too fast. In fact, when we're sitting in there watching traffic go by us, we're talking, yeah, that one's going too fast. Yeah, that one's going too fast. It's not uncommon for people to kind of blow through 20-mile-an-hour speed zones, no matter what you put up there to notify them. If you think about it, in the last week or two, we put up the little flags to remind people, which is good, but that won't break bad behavior. So there, we know there'll be more we want to do out there. One of the interesting things was that they said there were no concerns with the crosswalks in the time that they've been there, that they haven't seen anybody having any challenges crossing on the ODT or any of the side streets, Rutherford Road. So that was good news to hear that. That's not a surprise considering the last traffic count showed there was only about 800 cars a day going through there, which is not a high volume. The other thing that was interesting is that they said, according to the 8 years that they've been there, the one co-owner, she recalls that maybe 2 or 3 times when children basically slipped the hands and grips of their parents and dashed out. Now, 2 to 3 times is not fun. I'm not advocating for that, but I am saying that it is a very small percentage of the time when they have children out there and they are taking actions themselves to solve that problem. They have issued a directive to all their staff to park along that side of the building, which is right up against the road, West Quimby Road. They're having the pickup and drop off coming off of Rutherford Road, which is a quieter road. We spoke to them about the possibility, did they think about putting a fence up? And they had the same problem that we would have if we put any kind of fence, a guardrail up along that corridor. And by the way, it does not warrant it according to what we have to look at for installation of guardrails. And the problem is that anything we put up that's right along the right-of-way line doesn't give them any room then to park along that side of their building. So it severely impact their opportunity to have staff park along there. But they are aware of it, and they do send out reminders to the parents as they're picking up and drop off kids to please hang on to your kids and also come off of Rutherford Road, not West Quimby Road. So that seems to be an issue that they are addressing internally. In addition to that, we've also taken a look at the existing signage that's out there, the 20-mile-an-hour speed limit signs out there. And I've identified a number of problems that we have out there. First off, I don't believe the signage on the westbound direction is in the right location. It should be further away than on their property line. Second off, when you put up a 20-mile-an-hour speed limit sign, the traffic speed stays 20 miles an hour until you hit a new speed limit sign. And coming westbound, when you hit the 20-mile-an-hour speed limit sign, you go to the intersection, you go all the way to Washington, and it's 20 miles an hour. But people aren't doing that because they're thinking I'm past that, so I'm gonna go at a higher speed. Really should be a corresponding speed limit sign on the other side, a distance away, that gets them back up to the 30 or 35. Coming in the other direction from Washington, going eastbound, they hit the 20-mile-an-hour speed limit sign close to the intersection, but the next speed limit sign is quite a ways further to the east at 35 miles an hour. So one of the problems we have out there is the fact that we have 20-mile-an-hour speed limit on one side and 35 on the other. And in the traffic engineering world, that's a no-no. You need to have, if it's going to be 20 here and 35 on the other side to speed them back up, they have to be in the same location. So we need to fix that problem. The other problem that I see out there is that coming from Washington to the intersection on Rutherford Road, there's no speed limit sign. So that means automatically that's 25 miles an hour. When they come up to the intersection and they turn right, they haven't been notified that there's a 20-mile-an-hour speed limit. So we're basically kind of, but in the distances, they can see 35. So they start to accelerate because they see 35. Technically, the speed limit changes at that point. But again, there's nothing that tells them that you are entering into a 20-mile-an-hour speed limit zone. So we need to fix some things out there should the 20-mile-an-hour speed limit stay. And at this point, I'm not suggesting a change, but I am suggesting that we need to make it more code compliant or make it compliant so that our fine officers can actually enforce the law and not have to go to court and have someone say, well, I didn't know because you got all these problems. So we need to fix those problems. The other question that we wanted to look into, and we have so far, is where else in the city are there 20-mile-an-hour speed limits, and how are they in correlation to public schools, private schools, and daycares? And what I discovered when we're looking at this, it's a bit of a mishmash, to be honest with you. Everything around the public schools is 20 miles an hour, and it's signed and is done correctly. The challenge is that some of the private daycare, preschool facilities are in the 20-mile-an-hour zone, so not a problem. They're getting the advantage of benefit of that. We have other private ones that are on quiet residential streets. It's 25 miles an hour. There's no reduction in speed to 20. Okay, at 25 miles an hour, when everything around is 25 miles an hour, is probably pretty reasonable. Looking outside the city, though, I was the one to see, well, how's the county addressing this? And I found similar problems where there is a private school to the north of the city that the county drops it down to 20 miles an hour coming from both directions. There's no corresponding speed limit on the other side that brings it back up to the 25. There's no signage out there that tells anybody, the new guy driving the road, that there's a school out there. So you don't even know where the school is. It's set back away from the road. You can't see it. So there's a challenge there, but that's not my challenge. That's the county's challenge. We also looked at on Carlsberg Road. There's a public school along there. It's adequately signed. It's got the flashing lights. Everything looks good. There's a private daycare preschool on that same road. There's a 35-mile-an-hour zone. There's no speed reduction in there either. The distance between our facility, in the one in Swim versus the county, is that their building is set back quite a ways further away from the main road. So I think that's a good justification why Swim put in the 20 and would maintain the 20. But I just want to give you that briefing as we're looking beyond just what we're doing to see what others are doing. And it is surprising how different ways people are approaching everything. So what are we doing next? We have executed a work order with parametrics to do a speed study in the corridor as well as a traffic study. ADT, we want to know the count out there because we want to know not only are they speeding in close proximity right there at the preschool, but what are they doing further away? So we got a couple different locations and in both directions. Are they doing 20, 35 like the limit is at certain areas? How's it going? We are also getting the records for assessing accidents in the corridor. And the reason why I want the accidents, because I want to take a look at whether we should continue to allow a passing zone once you go past a certain distance, or whether it should be a no passing zone through the whole corridor. Or even if there's a high degree of accidents, there are some recommendations, but no official standards on passing zones where they should or shouldn't be. Other than that, they should not be in close proximity to intersections for the obvious reasons. And then if you have a lot of side streets coming in and you start seeing some accidents or any problems with visibility, then you want to make no passing zones. I will say that the stretch along that road, West Squim Bay Road, that where it is a passing zone, there's clear lines of sight, clear visibility. So coming off of one of those side streets from the residential developments, no one should have a problem unless it's like pouring down rain late at night, dark, and someone's driving out their headlights, that there shouldn't be a problem with anybody having an accident for those reasons. But we're getting the accident information along that corridor from the Department of Transportation. Once we have that, along with the speeds, we'll be able to make a determination whether we want to shut down the passing lanes through there entirely at all. Let's see here. I think those are the final items. It takes about 5 weeks from when we issue the work order to get the speed study done and the traffic count done. And then we're going to need some time after that to do the rest of our assessment. But those are the last things we're waiting on. Once we have that, I'll be able to come back and tell you what we're going to do out there. This is a traffic engineer responsibility to take a look at this and make changes to make sure we're in compliant with the manual on uniform traffic control devices, and also to make sure we don't set the city up for legal liability for accidents. We tend to be very conservative. At this point, I don't see, based on what I'm seeing, I don't see that we're going to be making any changes on the 20 mile an hour as far as eliminating it. It's more clarifying it and making it so the drivers know when and where they need to do 20 miles an hour. With that, I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Questions?
I appreciate all you did to prepare to study the situation. Another problem, I use that road frequently. Another problem I have found is bicyclists on Rutherford do not stop for the stop signs. Is there a rule that they don't have to? They don't. I mean, I'm talking, make eye contact with me before you whiz through an intersection.
Absolutely, they have to stop. They have to obey the same traffic laws as everybody else does. If they come up to the intersection and they're going north or south on Rutherford, they are supposed to stop. And this is one of those situations where they need to obey the law, because they don't, they're putting themselves at high risk of injury or death, because a 200-pound guy on a bicycle versus an 8,000-pound vehicle will lose every single time. And I wish people would understand that.
I just wanted to pick up on that. I lived for 3 years in Portland about 10 years ago. And it was, I think that it'd be really worth our time to go and try to connect with the OPBA, the Olympic Peninsula Bicycle Association, and maybe offer some community bike safety education. That was a big piece. It was kind of part of the culture in Portland. It's that cyclists would talk to each other, and that there were plenty of presentations about how to interact with the roadway as a cyclist. And that is the prevailing mantra, is that you are a vehicle and to treat yourself like one. So yeah, maybe that would be something that would be helpful. So thank you.
Any other questions? All right, seeing none, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Paul.
All right, moving on. Proposed rental rates for Swisher Hall.
Me again. So let's talk about Swisher Hall. A little while ago, Public Works brought forward a proposal for council consideration for rates on the new addition out there. It's primarily for performing arts, as was identified. We heard the message loud and clear that you are looking to see if there was a way to structure a fee for rental that would allow and recognize nonprofits' ability to pay, and also to rethink the idea of a 4-hour block time slot. So we went back and took a look at it and realized that the assessment that was being done was an attempt to do cost recovery. So looking in deeper detail on the cost recovery model, we realized that this isn't about cost recovery, that if we tried to do true cost recovery, no one would be able to rent the facility because it has very limited assets associated with it. In other words, there's no chairs, there's no tables, there's no music stands that we have. Those are owned by the band. So we took another look at it, and we're waiting for 2 more entities to give us the data. But in a couple of weeks, we will be coming back to talk to you about recommended rates, as well as hopefully a structure working with the band to have them take over the scheduling and the janitorial services. But since it's a city facility, the city will establish the rates, and then they will take on the rest of it and get us out of the loop. Part of the reason for that is no matter how we cut it, we're looking at least $40,000 to $43,000 to administer the management of the facility for limited return on it. As a nonprofit, they're able to do it cheaper, more effectively, but they would be able to also have cost recovery out of the rates that were collected. At a minimum, if it was a break even for the city, as far as we don't get any money out of it, but it just covers all the costs on the rental, we're saving $43,000 on staff time and money. We've had preliminary conversations with the band, and they're very interested in continuing the conversation. But we want to make sure before we finalize anything that they understand what the reporting requirements are going to be. There's financial requirements that they will have to have. They will need to work out liability and who does what and where. So that's in the works. We're not ready to get into the details. I will just say is that preliminary conversations look positive, but that may change in the next meeting or 2. So just be aware that we are working towards that. If that falls through, that's fine. But currently we're looking at less on an hourly basis. Well, let me rephrase that. We're looking at hour blocks, not 4-hour blocks. And we're looking at a cost on the hour block for for-profits and nonprofits. Nonprofits are about half the cost of a for-profit. So we're working towards that to meet what we heard you say at the last meeting on how you would like to see something structured out there. And with that, I'd be happy to answer questions.
Yes, I have a quick question. There's this talks about the band taking over administration part of the building. Is that what I heard you say? Like the janitorial aspect?
Two things, scheduling.
Yes.
And possibly janitorial.
Okay.
And because right now we have a contract for janitorial services, and our previous estimate was based on a certain number of hours per week for janitorial services. The challenge with that is that bakes into your rates. And then if you don't need janitorial services a week or 2, then your rates aren't really set up well. But at the same time, if janitorial services basically are someone running a vacuum or just going in there and cleaning the restrooms, it may take far less time. As a nonprofit, and I'm not an expert on this, but it's my understanding that they are able to basically charge for their services the amount of time it takes for them to clean the bathrooms at approved federal rates for volunteer services. That would undoubtedly be less than our contract service. Same for scheduling of time. So our time for our staff is $43 an hour. I think the nonprofit rate last time, and this has been many years, but last time I looked at it, it was closer to $15 to $20 an hour. So if they're able to book it for X number of hours, recoup that cost. If there's excess that they can't bank against that, that comes to the city. And we would need to work out the financials and the reporting and how often and all that.
So my question would be, so the city would still be the go-to for maintenance on the building?
Absolutely. That's
Okay.
ours no matter what.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And the liability insurance will be held by?
Yet to be worked out, but the
Okay.
liability for the building is the city's.
Okay. Is there some type of like an unspoken competition between the band and the orchestra? Are they the same entity?
Okay,
You know?
you're diving into the detail I don't know, but I will tell you is my understanding is the band and the orchestra are 2 separate entities. And what we heard at the one meeting I was here,
Right.
the band representative said the orchestra didn't do anything.
Right.
I
That's
got that
what I
right.
thought,
Didn't do
yeah.
anything to support the building list. They shouldn't get a freebie. So I'm not going to get between the two of them. I know that the band is we
neither.
have an agreement with. And yeah, just leave it at that.
Okay, but they are going to let anybody who wants to use it.
They
rent
have to.
it.
That will be a part of our agreement.
Okay.
It has to meet the criterion that the grant was given to performing arts. So what I also want to be careful of, and I'm a little tongue in cheek, but not entirely. I'm not sure if that we want to set the rates so low that the local grunge band playing in their parents' garage decides that they're going to come here and rent it for 4 hours.
Why not?
It may be a really good thing because in the neighborhood it's going to really love us, right?
The neighbors will
Yeah.
pass the hat.
Yeah, yeah. As long as they're not having any kind of unofficial performances in the building.
Okay.
So, but the band would be able to monitor that.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Anything else? All right. Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
All right. Item 10, reports, youth liaisons.
For purposes of the record, this is Georgia Bullard, Youth Liaison. So I'm going to talk about summer school. You guys think school ends, but it really doesn't. It keeps going for a long time. So summer school is different across the different grade levels. For high school, it's typically credit recovery programs. So for example, if you move to Washington during your sophomore year, then you're never going to get Washington State history, which is a graduation requirement. So you can either do online or you can do summer school credit recovery. So you get that credit. If you're behind for other reasons as well, you can do high school, summer school. But in elementary schools, it's usually more of this is a way to practice your skills and to get ahead. So my mom's a teacher, so I was lucky enough to be able to help with the kindergarten and first grade summer school, which started today and it goes all week. So they're learning about ice because it's summer. So they're making ice cream. They're testing to see how long juices freeze and doing other like ice related experiments. So for high school, credit recovery, but for elementary school, it's fun and you get to learn about ice. So yeah.
Hello, for the purpose of the record, this is Malia Nelson. I would like to state on behalf of me and a lot of younger people in the community, my appreciation for the Pride Month proclamation. I think that this community, and especially at the high school, it's very well seen how much support the LGBTQ plus community gets. And I think that as we move forward in society, the support really means a lot, especially to young people as they're figuring out their identities. The freedom and the ability to express what they're feeling and the people who they feel they're becoming, that freedom is very, very greatly appreciated. So thank you for that proclamation.
I just have a brief update. Hang on, let me write something down. This is what happens when you get old. I have to write something down. Okay. Brandon and I are working on a very distant project. We are interested in getting a Gold Star Memorial for the city of Sequim, preferably in one of our parks. And the city I used to live in had one. It is a memorial to the families of people that have died in active military service. Forks has one. Port Angeles has a Gold Star plaque from a different organization. But we are in the meeting stages and talking stages of doing this for Sequim. It'll take a long time. And if any counselor would like to get on board with it or find out about it, I can send you some emails. And anything else to say about it, Brandon?
Not just we have that meeting coming up.
Yes, we have a phone meeting with what city at Leavenworth? Yeah. People in Leavenworth that are doing it or have just done it there. We're going to talk to them on the phone. And the city is not meant to finance this, but I would like it to be in a city park. I think that would be nice. We don't really have a lot of veterans memorials here in this city. We have some benches and plaques and things like that. But so if you have any questions about it, after Brandon and I talk to these people, we will update you if you wish. Thank you. Oh, and one more thing. You've heard about the microgrid / blue energy coming to Squim Bay. Squim does not control Squim Bay. The state of Washington does. The PNNL, as you know, does blue energy, and they are going to run a trial run on a very small microgrid, which will give energy, free energy, to a city building, or logically, I would think it would be like a hospital or a building that's going to be used in an emergency. But at this time, the technology does not reach that far. So that it may be, and they would ask the city, it may be Guy Cole Center or it may be Trinity United Methodist. Both are used for emergency coordination. So as I hear things, I'll keep you posted. And we were all invited to the meeting. Mr. Hughes and I went to the meeting. It was right here. And then they've had one meeting since then. And like I said, it's a trial run. I'm very interested in it because I think blue energy will be the energy of one of the energies of the future. So I will keep you updated as I hear more. Thank you.
Christina, did you have anything for the city manager report?
I did. And to be clear, this isn't my report. I'm just reading it as presented. So as I think council all knows, city manager is out of the office today and will be back in the office tomorrow morning. For the communications department, the Lavender Weekend map is posted on our website. Visit sunnysquim.com. From the Department of Community Development, the Planning Commission was briefed on the direction of DCD to move forward with another 6-month mobile home park moratorium, providing additional time to visit sites and finalize recommendations on the manufactured mobile home park moratorium and work program, which means that extension will be coming to council for your authorization in the next couple of meetings. DCD also had a successful comprehensive planning workshop studios at Guy Cole. Currently, they're planning other workshops with SCJ across Squim for other public engagement opportunities. DCD is completing reimbursement for the 3 Department of Commerce grants related to the comprehensive plan major update for work completed between July 2024 and July 2023, and June 2024. From the Human Resources Department, all staff picnic and Sarah's farewell is Friday, June 28th at Gerhard Park from noon to 1:30. Pete Tjemsland's retirement open house is July 1st in council chambers at 2 p.m. And the senior planner position is currently open and closes July 8th. And as of the time this was provided to me and printed out, we have 4 applicants so far. And then finally, from Public Works, we have all hands on deck supporting upcoming events. We have the Independence Day Festival, Tractor Parade, and Lavender Festival. And then the vac truck and camera van show and tell at the next council meeting, July 8th at 5:30 p.m. outside City Hall. That concludes the city manager report. Thank you.
Council reports. Committee reports.
This agenda item is coming back to our agenda, I noticed. We had taken committee reports off the agenda.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay.
All right, open council discussion then.
No, I
don't think we agreed on that.
Either way, I just thought it was interesting. We're not the only ones with spicy public comment. That's just part of life, unfortunately, at this time in art. And so because I encountered it at the Clallam Marine Resource Committee, we had to adjourn our meeting because it was Zoom bombed. It was the first time I'd ever been Zoom bombed. It was very odd. Anyway, so they're doing lots of great work. the Arts Commission is doing great work, and so is the Parks and Recreation Board. They are doing amazing things. So I'm still very grateful and happy to be on the committees that I'm on. And we have some great commissioners and board members supporting the city's work. That's my city council committee report.
Anyone else?
I don't have a committee report. I just want to share about an event. So when everyone's done.
You can move on to open discussion. So go ahead.
All right. This morning, I took part in a planning meeting with partners in Clown County for August 31st, which is International Overdose Awareness Day. So we're planning a day-long event from 11 to 4 in Port Angeles down at the pier, marching up to the courthouse, and then back down to the pier. There'll be food and resources. You'll probably see me bringing forward a proclamation about that day. There'll be resources like Narcan, just some health resources, helping sign people up for health insurance if they are needing that kind of help. The partners are known: Peninsula Behavioral Health, Clown County Harm Reduction Center, the American Indian Health Commission where I work. And also, since both myself and Amy Miller were on there, as we want to include the city of Port Angeles and SQUIM if we can. Some of the ideas were having purple flags up for that day because that's awareness. There'll be a remembrance where we light candles that are purple. And at the end of the event, we'll invite people to join us in September, which is the celebration of Recovery Month. So there'll be more events after that. So that will be coming at the end of the summer.
Vicki, could you repeat the when and where this event is taking place?
August 31st at the Port Angeles City Pier. It'll start there at 11. And then at some point, there'll be a march up to the courthouse to remember people we've lost due to overdose. And then we'll go back down to the pier until 4.
Thank you so much.
Anybody else have anything for open discussion? Okay. I do have one item in regards to item 7A from earlier. So I had a call that recessor earlier because I had to get some legalese cleared up and chat with staff. So I would like to, because I think all of us here agree that we wholeheartedly trust staff to run the city. And although we may disagree on certain things, that we all wish the best for the city. So I needed to get some clarifications and some assurances on things. So if the way I did it ruffle some things, please let me know and I can always do it differently. But like I said, I needed some legalese clarified and chat with staff on some things. But due to some new information that staff has and that I would agree with and wish to see, I would move to reconsider this vote on 7A at next council meeting. And Sarah and Hannah are here to give more details on what new information can look like in terms of that vote.
Second your motion.
Is there any further discussion on that motion to reconsider for based on new information?
Is there a reason we have to wait till the next meeting?
I think it's just legalese. That's why I needed to talk to Christina.
All right.
So with respect, Brandon, Well, that's where, with respect to Brandon, it's legalese, it's council rules. So, you know,
Okay,
interpreting
if I suspend council rules, then, well, they're technically suspended.
They are technically suspended, and the only thing that I would caution, right, is that if any new information would alter what could be out there for public comment, because our public comment has already been held based upon the information as presented. So that would be the only thing I would caution against. I don't see anything in here that says that it can't be done at this meeting. What it says in the rules, however, is that upon passage of a motion to reconsider, the subject matter is returned to the table anew at the next regular council meeting for any action the council deems advisable. So in theory, you could waive that or suspend that rule as well, I suspect. I am not aware of any legal authority that prohibits you from doing that. So
What were you reading from? Sorry, just for clarification.
Council Rules, Section 3.2.
Thank you.
Mhm.
I would like to hear the new information, though.
Thank you for saying that, Kathy. I just, yeah, can we have the conversation with the senior management all together? So that, not in this very moment, but I'm just saying in general that if we need as counselors to talk to our senior management and we need new information.
Can you give us a quick rundown real fast? I think
it would be helpful if we could all talk to them all at the same time.
Well, and I didn't know if we needed a new public hearing. No.
Thank you for that also, Rachel. I was just making a comment about the 10-minute recess earlier. That's all. Thank you.
That's what that was? Oh.
Well, I needed to figure out, like I said, do we need, if I can rescind, how to proceed on a rescind motion if they had new information, because we needed stuff like that.
Right, to do a reconsideration.
Yeah. As I said, if council didn't like the way I did that, yell at me and I'll do it differently.
It won't come up again.
So, sorry, Chair, can you just clarify, we have moved and seconded to reconsider. Has that been voted on?
Well, there's the talk of, do we want to wait until next meeting? Do we want to suspend council rules, do it tonight?
I move we suspend council rules and do it tonight.
We still have a motion on the floor that needs to be voted on. So we would need to make two separate motions, as far as I'm understanding it.
So move to reconsider. You've done that already. We need to vote.
So the motion as it stands is to reconsider our vote on 7A, or reconsider what exactly? I would really thank you for the clarification.
Let's do this. I'll withdraw my original motion. So there's no motion on the floor.
Second doesn't agree.
So you want to vote on the original motion that'll go to next meeting?
No, sorry. For clarity, I understand there needs to be a sequence of motions here. We move to reconsider, yes or no. If we agree to reconsider, we decide whether to suspend rules and do it tonight or do it at a future meeting. Is that clear?
Okay, we'll do that.
So I would move to reconsider.
Gotcha. Okay. Any discussion on that motion to reconsider?
I will second the new motion on the floor.
Any discussion on that? Any opposed? Motion to reconsider passes.
I'd move to suspend rules and reconsider. Hear the new information, reconsider tonight.
I'll second that.
Say that one more time for me.
As I understand it, there are rules that need to be suspended so that we can reconsider tonight. In light of the fact that the only public comment was in favor of the motion, I'm not.
Did you want to hear the new information?
Well, only if we're going to consider tonight. If we're not going to consider tonight.
You want to give us a quick rundown of the information real quick? Get to this.
Do you need to make the motion first? Or- Okay. Mary says we don't have to wait for the motion.
Mary's in charge, right?
For purposes of record, this is Hannah Merrill, Parks and Events Manager. So new information, or perhaps just better clarity on the information you've already received is maybe how I need to say this. The position that has been requested is a Parks and Programming Assistant Manager. So this is someone that would support the position I'm in, Parks and Events Manager. And the reason we've asked for this is because there has been an increase in the workload. And I realized, and I kind of kicked myself, that I didn't write down numbers of how many more special event permits we have, how many more events we're supporting, that we're trying to introduce new events. We just took over the fishing derby this spring. We are doing the 4th of July. We're trying to work with the tractor parade. There's new things that are happening that require a lot more administrative tracking. I also work with numerous volunteer groups. They're busier also. So there's a whole bunch more going on in all of the parks, Pioneer Park groups, whether it's the Little League, the Soccer League, the Gray Wolves, softball guys, the Picklers, they're busy. So all these things have ramped up. So I am responding to those things and having an additional person that is an assistant manager, and it's not in competition with our maintenance. That's a separate need also. And we do have 2 full-time maintenance folks. And indeed, we're finding this year that due to the weather, that it's been raining constantly and then sunny for 3 days and everything grows, certainly having seasonals would be helpful as well. But right now, given the lift that we are experiencing because we added to my role rather than facilities, events and arts, and realizing that's a big lift. Also, we are now tracking, my position is tracking a board and a commission. So there are these different things that are administratively a bigger lift. And as to grants, I'm not the main grant person. It's true, Megan is our main person that's saying, okay, here's one. But they have to get information from me to inform those grants. And as the parks manager, I'm the one that has to present to RCO. So those questions come to the parks person and I can give the correct information back. And right now, because we want to get the new equipment out in the playgrounds, we want to get Centennial Place going, we are in the midst of some pretty major grant work, and it's not going to let up. That's going to continue. And also with the work doing master plans, again, I don't know if I clearly said it, but I'm trying to keep that in-house so it won't be so expensive rather than going out to have consultants do the work. And that work is a considerable lift, but we can do it. We have the experience in-house to do it, and we don't have to go out. But again, for me to do it would require more time. And if I had an assistant manager doing more of that day-to-day stuff, I have the bandwidth to do that. And it's not just for grants. Those master plans are to get the community involved in what's happening in our parks, which is super important. You get buy-in, you then have new volunteers, you have a lot more interest and support. So those are the reasons we're looking for this position to be supported. And the other thing I wanted to point out is when you look at the amount, the pay for this person isn't the total amount you see in your packet. That's for a year, and that's a fully loaded, that's with all the benefits, that's with retirement, that's everything. So this is a beginning level assistant manager wage. It's not like a full-fledged PD wage or, I'm a manager, so an assistant manager, and it's above an admin assistant, but it's not a highly paid, director level funding. And I don't know if that was clear in our earlier presentation.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Paul Busich here again. One of the things I'm not hearing Hannah illustrate is the cost for doing this long-range planning or master plans on each one of them. Essentially, you're looking at $150,000 to $250,000 to bring a consultant in to do your master plan for a park. Without the master plan for the park, our chances of going after grant funding is about 0. So If she is able to do that internally with the staff resources that she has, her salary is already paid for. The new position that we're asking for would be basically offset, if you will, by the fact that we're not having to come back and ask for $150,000, $250,000. There's 2 parks that we need to complete. We have a third one, as you know, that we now have a beautiful new 16, some 0.2 or 0.3 acres. And the community is going to want us to do something with that soon because it's nice and flat. You can do so much with it, but we need that bandwidth. We need that capacity. So what you didn't hear before was by hiring this position, we're actually going to keep more money in the city's coffers overall when we're doing this work. And we do it well, then we can generate more grant revenue coming in so we can start doing more on the parks. And then also we'll have more capacity to take care of some of the backlog on the systems we have already in place on the current parks that we're keeping up on them, but we could do so much more with them. So to me, that's more information I don't think that you heard earlier. So thank you.
See that nod? Is that saying
Go for it.
to move to reconsider, to move to suspend the rules
Yes.
Yep.
and reconsider the motion on 7A?
We've already done.
Yeah, so just move, okay. So
Moved and
suspend the
second.
rules first.
Yeah, so that's been moved and seconded already.
Yeah, so suspend the rules.
Excuse me, Council, if I may, Christina Nelson Gross, for the record, you've already made the motion to suspend the rules, or I'm sorry, to reconsider. What you need to do now is to suspend the rules that require this to be brought back to the next council meeting. You would need to suspend the rules, asking for suspension of that rule and reconsideration and determination on that issue this evening. Does that make sense?
It does, yeah. Thank you for clarifying. And my confusion is I thought that's what I'd already done before we got into more information. So let me repeat.
Understood.
Let me
Yes.
repeat that.
Yes.
Just for the record. I would move that we suspend the rules that require this to come back to the next meeting and reconsider at this meeting tonight.
I second that motion.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Any opposed? Seeing none, that motion passes.
We need a roll call since you did a roll call before.
I think, do we need one more for the actual motion now?
If that's a majority, we have to prove it on paper.
So I think we need one last motion to approve.
I move to adopt the ordinance amending the 2024 budget.
Seconded.
Okay, you can roll call that one.
Counselor Downer,
Yes.
Counselor Butler,
Yes.
Counselor Lowe,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Anderson,
Aye.
Mayor Janice, Counselor Rutter,
Yes.
Counselor Hartman.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0.
Anything else for open council discussion? All right, moving on. Who wants to be at the next agenda planning on July 2nd?
I do have one more piece that I wanted to state. And this is on the public comment piece. So I wanted to state that I reiterate again from what we said earlier to the public that we encourage you to incorporate or send us, please, your written public testimony. We're all available via email, and that it felt very uncomfortable taking public comment, suspending public comment for this meeting, and I just wanted to acknowledge that makes me feel uncomfortable. But I understand the reasoning why, and I highly reiterate again, that the public please reach out to their city councilors and let us know your public commentary and that we're here for you. And that I look forward to moving forward in such a way as you've presented some of the preambles that you stated, that we can encourage civil discourse in our community and take public comment, and also create a welcoming space for all, in that we don't want to tolerate harassment, comments that are harassing to members of the community. So thank you. Thank you very much. That is what I wanted to bring, felt very strongly about it. Thank you.
I just wanted to volunteer for the agenda planning meeting because I actually can go.
Okay.
For once.
All right, and then I'll see everybody here tomorrow for the school board meeting at 3:30. And the next regular.
I may not be here, but I will try.
Okay.
I will try.
And the next meeting will be July 8th at 6 p.m. If there's anything else, motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
I second that.
I'll see everybody tomorrow and then on the 8th.